us soon. He's got the live feed. Oh, there he is. Awesome. There's Sean. Thank you, Sean. So Sean, let us know when you're ready. And we've got another minute, I think. And Bill Hughes will not be joining us today.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 7, 2021 Police Reform Panel meeting. I want to start out by thanking everybody for all their efforts and time up to this moment. We know how difficult. I also want to especially thank the Sheriff's Office for all the work that they've done pulling information together so that this panel have material to work with. I look forward to continuing that process. District Supervisor Holding, remind me again, now that we're virtual again, how are folks going to comment from the public?
Yeah, so if you are watching on YouTube right now, there is a chat box. And if you have any questions or comments for the public comment section at the end of the meeting, if you can go ahead and put your comments in the chat box of YouTube, and then either our wonderful MIS person here or myself or Sherry can go on at the end and read off any of the comments that come into the chat box.
Okay, great. I think we'll start off with the first question on the agenda, and that is, what's the current status of the union participation in developing and drafting the body camera policy? Can we have an update on that?
It's still being talked about. It's in the attorney's hands. I got to be quite honest with you. I haven't heard anything since the labor attorney and since the attorney for the union started talking about it. And so it's been put in their hands, and they're going back and forth.
All right. Do you know, Sheriff, if it's going to wind up going before the existing negotiating team, or if it's going to be this particular body that's going to work for something else?
Again, as of right now, it's just left in the hands of the attorneys. They're the ones that are going back and forth with it. I don't even know if it's gone to a committee on the union side. I spoke to Elena. Elena spoke to Mike, which is the union attorney for the deputies. Right. And that's where it's at right now. And I know they've been speaking about different topics that have come up before on this panel.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Last month when we got together, Captain Bray had one heck of a tan, and he pointed out to us that he was doing recruiting, a little further up north. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity kind of on hold a little bit with the body camera policy to talk about what's going on with recruitment and how you folks are making adjustments, if any.
Yeah, both Louis and I can both speak about that. We actually did a full-blown push as far as every single zone. We had deputy sheriffs out recruiting in each zone. There's 5 zones in the county. Myself, I was actually up in New Lebanon at Lebanon Valley. We had a couple great nights up there. There were, I don't know how, well, I'm probably underestimating 10,000 people we saw. Wow. And it was great. We did a full-out Facebook push on it. We did get some decent recruitment out of it, but I would like to see more. I know that I talked to other counties, and they're getting 100, 150, 200 people taking the tests. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, and Cap, jump on, what do we have, 30 or 40 take the test?
I think it was 28 last time, and I believe she said 38 had signed up this time.
Okay. So we were very fortunate. As a matter of fact, the school started today down in Dutchess County, down at Zone 14. Mm-hmm. And we sent 5 very good recruits down to that academy. So I'm pretty excited about it. We've got one person with some experience. We've got another one that's in the military, and I've got couple other. I'm pretty excited about what we've got going there. So we'll see what happens once they get through the academy. But as always, we're still looking for qualified candidates,
Right.
and I'd love to see where we get up into the 100 or higher taking the test. As of right now, it's not happening.
Gary, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I have a question for Dave and Louis. Have you guys been approved through civil service for laterals?
We have spoken to them about laterals. They would take it on a case-by-case basis. We did put the word out for laterals. Pay comes into play. I'm not going to lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I did, and I have approached, I'm going to approach them again, is the opportunity to recruit from surrounding counties, excluding Connecticut and Mass, because HPD can do it. Right now, the only thing we have is once you're hired, you can live in outside counties. So that's one thing I'm going to work on with civil service on trying to do. We put the word out for laterals. We did a Facebook push on it, and we, like a bad day of fishing, we got no nibbles.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Hey, Gary, for the layperson on this call, can you define what lateral means?
Sure. Lateral transfer is where we would basically take somebody from another agency who wanted to come over. We have lateraled in the past, like I think the last candidate was from Rensselaer County. We paid a little bit more than Rensselaer did, so they came down here. And it has to be authorized through the Civil Service Board. It's something that we just cannot do. And if they authorize it, and they have been good about it, but they also have existing lists that they don't want to circumvent. And so you're basically picking the low-hanging fruit. You're trying to get people from other agencies that are certified, qualified, and have already had experience. And it's a great thing if you can do it. But there was nobody that was interested.
Gotcha.
Well, this is relatively new, right, Sheriff, for Columbia County, the lateral hires?
Yeah, we've tried it before. And again, we were able to take one or two before. And we've also lost people before. People have gone to the city of Hudson. And it's not a lateral going to the state police. State police, they have to go right into another academy. But again, it's not apples to apples by any means if you start talking about the state police, because they make so much more money than we do.
Right. Dave Hall, you have a question? Oh, we're going to start with that. You're muted again.
Dave, you're still on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize that. So I have two quick questions. For Sheriff Bartlett, how positive do you feel about getting permission to go outside the county?
Working with civil service has been great. I can't say enough about Becky and Kathy and all the other women that are on the board. I mean, and they're all, right now, we have 5 people in, and when I say DCSO, that's Dutchess County Sheriff's Office Academy. We work very close with DCSO. We actually send instructors down there. So with the 5 that are going, it does kind of plug the dike a little bit, but I have people out on 207C, which are medical things. I have people out under indictment. I have other people, and we can't fill those spots. So those spots have to remain open. So right now, Dave, the best answer I can give you is I'm pretty excited about these 5 men and women that are going down to Dutchess. We just actually ran a small academy here in Columbia because we were in such desperate need of deputies. I actually ran a 5-person academy. Mm-hmm. And even with that, 2 people quit. But I'm pretty excited about this. So hopefully we can get the numbers back up to where they need to be. Because, I know I talked to my men and women, and they're working their tails off and doing a great job for Columbia County.
How many more do you need, ideally?
Hey, Lou, what do we got? 10?
Yeah, I think think we're a handful short due to some promotional spots that we can't fill quite yet because of the need for the backfills.
Got it. So you feel pretty confident that we'll be allowed to look for recruits outside of the county? There'll be an exception made?
That's something that I would have to discuss with the Civil Service Board.
That's what I was originally asking about, because I know Officer Bray mentioned last time that we are kind of limited to within the county, and we're a pretty small population, and they're probably good qualified people. What's our diversity looking like in terms of people interested in joining up from the folks that have expressed interest?
I don't think all that good.
Yeah,
honestly. And we've gone out and we've targeted certain areas, trying to get diverse. I mean, as far as the agency itself, we are diverse. Again, as far as when it comes to female, I want to say we're probably at least 25% female. Mm-hmm. When it comes to different people of color and whatnot, we're above, I believe, the state standard is not the standard, but where the state is. Mm-hmm. But I don't have those numbers in front of me, Dave. But it's all we can do is keep trying.
Yeah, great.
I actually the little academy that I did run. Mm-hmm. Out of the 5, 2 people, they declined and they didn't want to go through it anymore. Mm-hmm. One of the gentlemen is part-time. The 2 other gentlemen are full-time. And one of those 2 other gentlemen is African-American and Hispanic. So he's, so I was excited about getting him. He's a great guy.
And I just had a quick question, which may seem like a side issue, and I apologize if it is. You mentioned, of course, that certain jurisdictions outside of the county offer higher pay. Is affordable housing, workforce housing, at all a disincentive for folks coming here? Do you know? I know that's a bit of a side thing outside of purview, but I was just kind of curious if there was a perceived shortage of affordable or workforce moderate income housing here, and if that was an issue for people.
Housing is tough. When I have a young lady that works in the jail come to me in tears, and this is when we were finally able to get the authorization. And again, I thank the Civil Service Board for this. They're good to work with, to allow us to live outside the county, because she wanted to buy a home. And she couldn't buy a home here in Columbia County anymore because of the influx of people coming from downstate, moving in and buying homes up. And so we were able to get that.
Okay.
I think the big thing is just we are smaller. When I look at, we're very close with Fulton, Rensselaer, Saratoga, shooting right up along the east side of the state with Warren and Washington. And, those guys are seeing, those sheriffs are seeing bigger numbers coming in and wanting to work. And they have the same, like say going to Saratoga, you got Glens Falls up there, PD, and you got a couple other smaller. It's kind of like Columbia, with the city of Hudson and then the smaller PDs. But I think when I talk to the sheriff there, he's a very good friend of mine, and he says, "Oh no, I take people from surrounding counties all the time." So I guess that's something we need to work on. We have worked on it and we've spoken about it before, but I know that they also wanted to see what the list came around. And as far as pay right now, we have been working on that with the County Board of Supervisors, with our negotiation committee, to see where we are and getting different looks at other county agencies and where they are in respect to us. And so I have negotiations on Thursday, actually, with both units. So we're working on that too, Dave.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it. It's good to know. I just, as an aside, I'm doing a little bit of work in my town and thinking quite beyond that in terms of workforce housing and the affordability of it around here. So I'm definitely aware that's an issue for a lot of people in the community. Thanks so much for that little digression. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Supervisor, you have your hand up.
I do. So, Sheriff Bartlett, I'd love to talk a little bit more about diversity. As you know, in the plan, one of the things that was recognized on page 20 under strategy, the Sheriff's Office recognizes the lack of diversity within law enforcement in Columbia County and is committed to addressing this issue by placing a focus on recruiting, training, and retaining Black people, people of color, and women in various positions of the Sheriff's Office and local law enforcement agencies, thereby maintaining an inclusive organizational culture. See Section 5, Part B, Reform HRR 1. So when I go to that section, current and continuing is the status And it talks about taking proactive steps to increase diversity of the candidate pool so newly hired officers better reflect community demographics, encourage potential candidates to take advantage of preparatory law enforcement training, non-weapon portions of the police curriculum. And then it has a list of actions. And I realized that up until now, this committee has really been focused, which, like Supervisor Bury said, is on hold currently due to union input. So I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about these actions and see where your office is at with them, and ways that we as a committee can support you, ways that, you know, we can kind of get going on some of these, which I think are great ideas. Talks about reaching out to the community via social media, community events, local nonprofit organizations, local town and village governments and their websites and social media, and local colleges and schools. It sounds like you've been working on that. This one I really like. Work to sponsor recruits via profit agencies as long as candidates meet requirements. And if I remember back to our conversations when creating this plan, there were some organizations specifically in Hudson that had a lot of kind of diversity populations that they worked within, that were willing to partner with your office to try and reach out to some of their community. Has that happened at all? And if not, is there a way that I or this committee can kind of support connecting your office with some of these organizations?
Lou, you want to jump in on this one?
So, you know, to go back a little bit about our efforts, you know, we, as the sheriff had mentioned before, we put out a full court press for, you know, for hiring and recruiting for this this upcoming exam. Just a couple of the places to mention, you know, we went down into the city of Hudson a couple of times. We went to the Hudson Housing Authority Community Day. We've been to the DMV. We set up a shop in there. We've been to the ShopRite in Hudson, you know, and other places throughout the county. And we tried very, very hard to include those communities. And we printed out flyers. We pushed this on social media and shared it thousands of times. This post was thousands of people reached this post. And you know, I printed out job applications. I printed out the you know, veteran credit applications, fee waivers for civil service tests. So we had everything we could possibly give to everybody to make it you know, possible for them to take the test and sign up for the test as easily as they could. And you know, full court press. And we ended up netting about 10 more people than the last test, which, you know, wasn't great, but percentage wise, it was a big increase. So we did push very hard for that.
That's great. Thank you for those efforts. I'm wondering too, and I'm not in Hudson, but I know there's some other organizations that were mentioned. I'm wondering if any of the other supervisors or people watching via YouTube wants to email the sheriff or me with organizations that you could partner with, because one of the things, number D, is actually to create a diversity recruiting program in partnership with a local nonprofit organization. So I think that's all great what you've been doing. I think it maybe could be taken even a step further if we have a nonprofit organization or two that's willing to partner with your office. So I'm going to put that out there, because I know like some of the Hudson supervisors are much more in tune with some of these organizations. And anyone from the public that knows of one, feel free to reach out. And I think we could, you know, really work to partner there. And the last one was survey officers to evaluate their opinions about their career, what has drawn them to law enforcement, and areas in need of improvement. Is that something that you guys have developed at all, to survey your current officers to find out, you know, why they're there and what's great and what's not great?
Yeah, so we just actually, I'm glad to bring that up, because we just got done with in-service. And whenever we have in-service, I always have a time when I go in with my commanding officers and we sit down and we talk to all the officers to let them know what's going on in the department, things that we're pushing for, things that we need, and also their ideas and opinions. I got one very good idea out of one of the deputy sheriffs, and just for security's sake, I'm not going to get into it, but I am doing it. And besides that, it was, no, everything's fine. There was nothing. I mean, you know, please, when we say, feel free right now to ask us what you want, what you need, what can be changed. This is your agency too. This is our home. This is our county. You know, what can we do to make it better? And again, one person spoke up as just far as some security stuff. And I spoke to the captain about it. And then I ended up finding some money for the equipment, and we're going to be getting that out on the streets to make these guys and men and women safer when they're on the streets.
Great. Have you considered, Sheriff, like an anonymous like Survey Monkey survey? Not that people, can't express directly to you, especially if you're really open to it, but sometimes people are shy to speak up if it's, face to face, and they're more comfortable knowing it's going to be kind of, data analyzed without their name attached to it. Have you considered putting out something where people can go on without their name attached and just, give general feedback, answer questions, that sort of survey?
Yeah, I would absolutely be for that. There's nothing wrong with that. My door's always open. If you come into my office, we're paramilitary. We follow strict chain of command. But when it comes to anything personal or ideas or suggestions, unless I'm in a meeting, my door is always open for the men and women. So it's honestly, Supervisor, I think that's an awesome idea, and we could probably put together some type of a survey and ship it out to our officers, and even our civilian, all of our people, our civilian staff too. We've got a lot of people that work there, so I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Dave, Sheriff, I want to go back to lateral hires for just 1 second. You said we're working with civil service on a case-by-case basis. Is there anything that the Board of Supervisors can do to help you in that regard, or is that something that you have to handle directly, maybe with human resources on your own?
Wave the magic wand and have people say yes, they want to come.
Well,
I mean, that's what it
comes.
comes.
I mean, just getting civil service to approve it, a blanket approval. Is there anything that we could do?
No, because they're doing it. I mean,
All
again, Becky and Kathy, though, they've been awesome. I mean, we sit down and
Oh yeah, they're great. They're great.
yeah, there's been no problems, but we've put the word out. We've both online and internally. Let's face it. I've got a lot of people in this department, and we start spreading the word to other agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start getting it out there to other agencies. Hey, we're looking for laterals. Anybody want to come? Blah, blah, blah. And zero nibbles.
Well, so far, I think you said that it seems to be recruitment is trending upward again throughout the region. It'll just take a little bit more time, hopefully, before we can get it back to where it was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The next item on the agenda is the dashboard, and the reason that I asked for this to be on the agenda, you bought some software. Can you tell us about that software so that everybody that wasn't in that meeting last month can understand what it is you guys are getting?
Yeah, so that's going to be the new SJS you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so currently we have a outdated and very extremely old system. It's called SJS, Spectrum Justice System. It's from the state. At some point, the state's going to be doing away with SJS. They've actually already done an RFP with another company. Very expensive, extremely expensive. Some of the things that you had to have were possibly over 500 officers in each agency. When I asked the rep at the conference, the winter conference, I said, hey, I was like, what's going on with this? I said, you're kidding me, right? SJS is free. It's linking, police agencies together and so on and so forth. And the answer I got was call your legislator. And literally, that's what I got. And I'm the sitting president, and that's the answer I got. So we were able to partner with a company that we use for our RMS in the jail. They're very schooled and good at that. They're statewide in many jails. They're looking to expand their horizons now and get out into the police community because they're seeing that there are issues with the new company with the RFP that went out. And so we're gonna give it a shot. And basically, for the supervisors for allowing me to do it, I was able to find some money in my budget that I currently have. And along with that, I'm also going to be assisting all the part-time police agencies, except for the Village of Chatham, because they work with the state police. They left us. and we're able. So, and everybody knows that when we sat and we talked about police reform, one of the biggest things, if I had $1 for every time it came up, I wouldn't be sitting here now, was data. And SJS never allowed us to have that data because it's such an old, outdated program. It's been around for as long as I've been a cop, it's been around. So this new program, when they were putting it together, you know, I had said to them, I said, one of the biggest things, and this is what the public wants, they want data and they want to see what's going on and they want transparency and they want to be able to know as far as, you know, the different demographics, as far as who were arrested, so on and so forth. And it's all in this program. It's an awesome program, as well as consolidating. Like if Dave Bartlett's got to go make an arrest and I get a stolen cell phone, I've got to take my incident report. Then I've got to do an evidence report as far as logging into evidence because I've got a cell phone that I got. Then I've got to log the evidence in and go into my evidence tracker and do that. And now say I have a suspect of Jimmy Smith. Okay, so now I got to go to another program and look up Jimmy Smith, whether it's through the federal database or whether it's state. And so what this new program does now, it consolidates all of that into one-stop shopping. They really thought it out well. So I'm pretty excited about it. We have been testing it for a little while. I haven't really gotten that many, or if any, complaints from the deputies that are testing it and the investigators that are testing it. So at some point we're gonna kick it off and run it full. And you know, I've already spoken to the other agencies as far as Greenport, Philmont, Stockport, and they'll, again, it's a licensing thing basically. When somebody's on, they're using a license. So we're going to get so many licenses, and at that point, the part-time PDs will also benefit. And the thing with the part-time police departments, we've always been and will always continue to be a resource for those agencies. They're smaller agencies. They take care of the stuff in town. They do their thing. They're a great asset to the community. You know, but let's face it, if they get a major crime, they can't handle a major crime. We will assist them or they will turn it over to us. And it's just like this, you know, training, we assist them with training and the range and so on and so forth. But this, again, working with our partners out there. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds like a great program. Supervisor, you have your hand up.
I do. Thanks, Sheriff Bartlett. I'm really excited about this. As you know, I moved the resolution in public safety. And one thing that I asked there that I just want to kind of reiterate here and then do have a follow-up question. As you said, the plan that we released talked about access to data. And one of the issues was that your program didn't allow for it. And so your strategy was that you were going to look to collaborate with Columbia County MIS and identify ways of developing a way of reporting more specific data that can be released to the public on a regular basis. So one, just to reiterate, you did answer this in public safety. This new software will allow you to run data based on, you know, arrests based on race or gender that we were really missing. And it's hard to kind of analyze when you don't have that data. But two, I wanted to see what your definition of a regular basis is. Do you see yourself as an organization releasing reports to the public on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, coming to public safety meetings maybe on a either monthly or quarterly basis, and also out to the public to just give a kind of snapshot of over the last month or over the last 3 months, here's what the demographics looked like. Did you have an idea yet on how frequent the public and the Public Safety Committee could expect those reports?
I guess that's a decision we can make right here, because again, this is such a great, knocking on wood right now. It's, you know, like any new program, there may be a couple of hiccups here or there, but I could release it every month. I could release it quarterly. I could, whatever. I mean, it's something we could decide here. That's an easy one.
How heavy of a lift is it to run the report? Is it really just a click of a couple buttons, or is it something that takes a while? Because I'd love to see it monthly, but if it's something that takes, you know, an hour or 2 or 3 of you or Captain Bray's time, then quarterly is probably sufficient. How hard is it to print those reports, to compile them?
I'm going to punt to Captain Bray on that one because he's the one that's very knowledgeable on this.
Yeah, so we have two options. They have a number of canned reports, and by canned, I mean they're just general reports, you know, number of arrests, yada, yada, yada. There's a handful of those. And then we can get into custom reports. The custom ones, of course, we would use our own filters and our own, search criteria, whether it be weekly, monthly, biannually, or whatever the case may be. But we can save those search criteria and then just filter by dates. So it wouldn't be a tremendous lift. The hardest part would be just trying to narrow down what type of information the board would look for, you know, in the report, because there may have to be a couple of different reports based on the criteria that you want to search for.
Right.
We currently do get reports from the Public Defender's Office and from 911 and on a monthly basis in public safety. So I can envision, if it's not going to be that difficult, I can envision a monthly report from CCSO that has, you know, certain demographics just updated, you know, the basic stuff. And if there's anything that needs to be customized, I think that that's a conversation that we can certainly have. But it sounds like a great tool.
Yeah, I agree. If it's easy enough to set those parameters and then do that as a monthly report. And one thing I would probably look at is page 18 of the report that we put out, because that seems to be the demographics people are looking for. So it has, age, race / ethnicity, and gender. But one thing that's cool is it breaks it down not only by arrest, but also then by felony arrests, so that you can see, is there a real difference in the demographics between, a misdemeanor versus a felony arrest. So for me, those would be what I would be looking for, is kind of some of the demographics that are defined on page 18 of the report. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Mr. Hall.
Okay, I'm unmuting. Thanks. A couple of sets of letters, I didn't quite know what they were. Is it RFP or RSP? And what does that mean?
Go ahead, Lou.
It's RFP, request for proposal. The state of New York went out to RFP, request for proposal, for companies to create or propose a new records management solution for the state of New York. And a company was awarded that RFP in the bid.
And what's that company? RMS, or does that mean something else?
RMS is a records management system. There are many RMS companies.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, and then finally, so you've got you know what the racial breakdowns are in this new system. You the guy who's following that knows all the categories.
So as the sheriff said, we were testing this right now. We don't have a tremendous database of information in there currently.
Mm-hmm.
We did look at some test data to look at some of the reports that we can produce, and it is tenfold more than what we could do with this version of software that we currently have. Whether or not it can break down a report like the supervisor said, where it has the age, the race, and the felony misdemeanor all in one chart, I don't know. We could definitely do it in multiple charts. We might have to consolidate it, but there are tremendous reporting and statistical capabilities.
And what are the racial breakdown categories? Is that something you have handy that you can tell me now? As I've mentioned in a previous meeting, I'm part of a group of people that's never been counted in the census. Every time I go to a doctor, there's not a category for me. There's no category for me at local, county, state levels. Had that problem with the health department, Columbia County Health Department. Are Arabs going to have a category on here so we're counted for something?
So the race categories are defined by what's called IBERS and NIMERS. It's all incident-based reporting, and that's set by state and federal government. So those categories are already predefined in the incident-based reporting that we report monthly to New York State and to the FBI with, and those categories are predefined by those agencies. So we have to select something based on the criteria that they take the reports in.
Okay, so the answer is we're still, until something happens, we're not going to be in
they
there.
change the demographic reporting capabilities of what they take in. That's the only choices that we'll be able to input.
Got it. Thank you.
Dave, that might be a question that you might want to pose to one of our legislators, either state or federal.
Yes, I'm talking with Dee Dee Barrett's office about that,
Yeah.
and I'm actually calling them this afternoon to follow up again. The health department has forwarded it up to my request to the state Department of Health. But yeah, it's a real nationwide challenge, and particularly during COVID, the community suffered from ill effects because of not being counted. So it's kind of a serious issue. Not to sort of lay it out with you guys, but I was just curious if we had any ability to create our own categories in any of these systems so that we can add traditionally uncounted groups like Arab Americans.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and if it's a national thing, let's be the tip of the spear and let's lead it. Again, if you're going to get into different types of, I can see one problem that might pop up is, okay, well, if you're Arab, but then are there other, you know what I'm saying, as far as sub things off of that. So, but if you need something on that, get a hold of me. I mean, Indeedy's great to deal with. So, even if you need me to speak to her, I can call her at any time.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, because it's been a national issue for several decades in terms of just the census.
Yeah.
And we were promised a category up until the last census, and it was taken away. So it's been a big problem. And as I said, there are a lot of negative social and particularly lately health effects because of that invisibility. So I appreciate your backing me up on it. I'll mention your name to her, that it'll be useful for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw her this weekend, actually. So anytime.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Do you know, Captain Bray, is there like an other category? So if somebody like Dave doesn't fit any of the pre-set categories, do they just go in an other?
So I'm actually on the new site that we're proposing to use, and the categories for race again, and these are based on the categories that the state and federal government require us to report in. And the choices we have are, we have to select one. It's American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian or Pacific Islander, Black, White, or unknown. And then for ethnicity, the choices are either not applicable, Hispanic, non-Hispanic, or unknown. So we're limited in choice to those. That's the only thing that the federal government will take in on the incident-based reporting.
Wow, that's pretty limited. Yeah. And sorry to get off in the weeds. Do you ask the person, or do you just go by looking at them going, you look white, you look Native American? Is it a question when you're arresting someone that you ask their race or their ethnicity?
As we take the demographic information in, or the pedigree from a person that we arrest, we go straight through the report line by line and ask the question of the individual under arrest. We're not going to speculate or guess on anybody's, anything. It's a question that they can answer, and hopefully they're truthful with us.
Got it.
Okay. So it looks like we got through the first three questions. Do any other supervisors have anything that they want to add about the first couple of points here? No. All right. So then why don't we see if we can get some comments from the public?
So our MIS department, do you have the easy way of jumping on the YouTube link, or should I try to go over? Go ahead if you can. If not, I can jump on.
I'm on right now and I'm not seeing anything in nothing's showing up in my chat.
Okay.
And you're not seeing anything in the chat, correct, Sean? Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have anything else for today? All right. Well, time is very valuable. Yes, Supervisor.
Well, I just wanted to mention for potentially a future agenda, and you and I certainly can talk, but just to put it out there to everyone, the chairman did appoint a citizen review board, and we as a committee were tasked at kind of figuring out how complaints would come in, what the role of that review board is. So I do think that would be a useful thing, because the board has been created. And I think not that we have all these pending complaints that need addressing, but sooner than later if we could create, a process. And I think the implementation or the plan does speak to, being able to drop it at different places. The town hall, it definitely addressed it a little bit, but it was one of the action items that this committee was going to kind of define more specifically. And we do have a committee ready to go. So,
We'll put it on the
Hey,
agenda for October.
yeah, Dave or Sheriff Bartlett, sorry.
Yeah, we're up and running on that. We've got a spot up and running. As far as complaints, people can come right to our site and get it. And we've got another thing in the works. I'm just waiting for some final stuff to be done in an app that's ready to roll out any day. I'm just waiting on some final stuff as far as inmate lookup. It's on the techie end of company that will have the inmate lookup on our app. And also on that, it'll have a spot where you can file complaints and also personnel complaints and so on and so forth. So that's all up and going. Again, the app is just delayed just a little bit simply because of not on our end. But that's going to be really, I'm saying the word excited a lot today, but I am. The app is, it's pretty cool. I can let you know more about it. You're on the legal or on the public safety. But that should be hopefully coming soon.
Great.
That's really wonderful. So the complaint process, it sounds like, is in place and in the works. Has it been defined yet what the role of the citizen review panel is? Do the complaints go directly to them? Has that happened as far as once a complaint is received, what the process is to get it to the review board?
I think we still need to work on that because if, again, we get back to technical or we get back to other complaints, if History Holtling wasn't wearing her hat correctly, do you want that to go to the citizen review board? It's 99% of our complaints, which we have very few of anyways, are technical infractions. The guy's uniform is dirty or something. And again, we don't get, I said it in police reform, I'm going to say it again now. We don't get a lot of complaints on the deputy sheriffs. The majority of complaints, if we get it, is maybe something internal where I'll see something that's out of place or a sergeant will see something. So again, the site's up and running. Louis, are you able to pull that up? And then again, I keep going to Captain Bray. Captain Bray is very techie savvy here.
He's doing most of the heavy work today, that's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, this guy, he's absolutely a credit to this agency and a credit to the county because he's done a lot of the technology stuff as far as even when it comes down to, the new app that's going to be coming around or this new program. Louis and a couple of the other people are the point people on that. So are you able to bring that up and maybe show them?
Yeah, I can pull it up. I just got to share my screen real quick if everybody has a second.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
So you should see a site that says Columbia County Law Enforcement Complaint Forms. Everybody
Yes.
see that? Okay. So
Yep.
This is the website that I worked on with MIS to get this going. And this is basically a live website that will be available for the public to utilize to make a formal complaint against a police officer through one of our agencies, our partner agencies, or the sheriff's office. As the sheriff mentioned, we're going to have an app coming out shortly. There's going to be a way through that app to get to this site as well. This site is available on any desktop computer, any mobile device, tablet, laptop, etc. And people can come to this site, and there's a number of ways to file a complaint. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward website. Basically, pick your agency that you want to file a complaint against. And again, it's the sheriff's office and those three partner agencies. So assuming somebody wanted to make a complaint against the sheriff's office employee, they would click that link right there. And then it gives them two options. They can do an online submission or a print and mail submission. And mail meaning it could be in person drop off. It could be through the mail, attached to an email, however they wanted to get that into us. But the online submission is pretty straightforward. It brings them to a Google document that they fill out with the nature of their complaint. And once they've gone through about 3 pages of information, they'll submit that complaint, or they can go to the print and mail version, which is a PDF. You can fill it out here electronically, or download the PDF and print it out, and then attach it to an email or submit it through mail or in person to the agency that they want to complain about. And the website is set up in a way that if they want to complain about a member of the sheriff's office, that complaint would go to the sheriff's office of professional standards to review the complaint in its entirety. And the same process would happen at the local police departments. If someone went to the Greenport PD and filed the complaint online, it's directed to that agency's office of professional standards as well. We don't see their complaints. They don't see our complaints. It goes to each individual agency. But this site is up and running. It's ready to go. We're going to start hopefully very soon, especially once we get this app up and running and ready to release to the public.
That's great. Thanks.
Thanks.
So my 2 cents on that, and we can certainly put this on the next agenda as well. I do hear what you're saying, Sheriff Bartlett. You know, if it's about, I don't like the way her hat was on her head, then certainly the complaint of any wrongdoing. But my take, just similar to how the ethics board in New Lebanon works, like that board is the one that makes that determination. So because you don't get a ton of these complaints, it's not like we're going to overwhelm this citizen review board. My inclination would be that everything goes to them, and it's their discretion and determination as to whether it's even worth investigating, right? Like our ethics board first looks at it and says, if this were true, is it in violation of our ethics code? And if the answer to that is no, then that's it. That's the end of it. You know, we reviewed your complaint, and even if it's fully true and everything about it is accurate, it doesn't matter that her hat was on sideways. We have no prohibitions against that. And then if it is something that, yeah, if this were true, it would be a violation of something, then that's when, you know, the investigation would get launched. That would be my leaning, would be that everything just goes to them for a quick review. I think the way the chairman put it together, I think Sheriff Bartlett, you're on it. I think the way he put it together is a kind of bipartisan across many different agencies, a lot of different input. So I think you have a board that's going to be able to look at it and be like, nope, this isn't something we need to really consider, versus something they might need to look further into.
Yeah, I mean, and this could very well fall into the wheelhouse of the ongoing talks between the labor attorney and the union attorney. That's something I would have to run by Elena. And as I said before, the old Maytag repairman is very lonely. That's pretty much the way we are with complaints here too. There aren't any complaints that come in. There really aren't. So I'm open to anything.
Yeah.
Again, because there aren't any. I mean, I'm open to that, but I would have to refer back to Labor Council on that to see if that's something that the union would have a say in or not.
I have to agree with the sheriff on this one because, having been involved in labor negotiations for a bit here for the county, if we're going to be looking, if there's going to be a civilian group that's looking to get information about everything that is reported, that's going to have to be vetted. Okay, I can agree with if there's an issue with hands-on, inappropriate treatment, that kind of a thing, something physical. But the hat on the head, the wrong direction is technical / administrative, and I'm not sure that belongs in front of a group of civilians. So that's my take on it right now. I think we have to find a way to compromise on that. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I would back up Supervisor Hoteling in the idea that, we want this panel to be as independent as possible, and we want to make sure that citizens are represented as well as police unions in terms of what's in their best interests. And I just had the idea that, a copy could not just go to the department, but to the committee as well. When someone submits a complaint, it could go to the panel as well as to the department. And again, if that means negotiation, and some of these do and some of these don't, but I think if we start picking it, if we leave it to the police department to pick and choose what the civilian review panel sees, then it's not really an independent panel.
I'll agree with you on that, Mr. Hall, and I'll take the opposite direction, which is if we leave it to civilians to decide what's going to be in their purview to rule on, then that might not be fair to law enforcement either. I think we want to be fair to everybody. I'm not saying don't give them the information that would help make a difference in the way that the department is run or how a particular deputy is disciplined if it's required. But there are going to be things, there are going to be areas, issues that may not be appropriate for that particular forum.
Exactly. And I think one of the challenging balances that we have to strike here is sort of the rights of union workers, which are really important, as well as the rights of citizens. So I feel we're a smart bunch. I think we can probably find the right compromise.
Right. And you do have 50A. We do have the ability to get disciplinary records as well. You can, if someone felt that, okay, this was not handled by the Civilian Complaint Review Board, but what ultimately happened? And if it's worth looking at, then it's worth looking at. But Sheriff Bartlett, you have your hand up.
Yeah, everybody's sort of forgetting one thing too, is there could be criminal cases that we may be involved with that comes from a complaint. And so civilians aren't going to see that. That's going to the district attorney's office. Since being here, I've had to arrest 2 of my workers since I've been sheriff. And there were 2 others that were arrested by other agencies. So we may have criminal complaints that we're dealing with. And at that point, the district attorney's office is going to be involved. Mm-hmm. And I highly doubt, I can't speak for the DA, but I highly doubt the case is going to go in front of a civilian review board to have civilians look over a pending criminal case. We can't discuss ongoing criminal cases that we've had with anybody. So that's something that, also needs to be addressed too.
Yes, why this gets very, very complicated. There isn't a straightforward, simple answer. We go this way or we go that way. We're going to need to really invest some time in this. Supervisor Tremedius, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to offer a potential way forward. This is more of a framework than a specific answer, but maybe we could create a flow chart. In the following situations, this is how it would be handled. In these situations, this is how it would be handled. And some of it might also be that there's there's a person who does the review. So in these situations, this person or this team does the review. In this situation, this person, this team does the review. And there could potentially be, for accountability, there could still be a record that's like, by the way, a report was filed. It's being handled by the district attorney, or it's being handled by this, internally by the sheriff's department. And that's all it's like released to the committee, to the review committee. But that's because we followed the flow chart. And so that if we like that, the key thing would be filling out that flow chart and what situations, who does the review. But I think it makes sense that there's going to be certain situations where something is either not reviewed or redacted. But I think our best case scenario is to identify the lanes ahead of time, because that sort of creates that everyone's on the same page.
I agree with you, Supervisor. That's a good idea. I would imagine that major city civilian complaint review boards already have this framework somewhere. We're not going to be recreating the wheel.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that there are probably plenty of good models for us to look at and decide what's going to work best for our community, I would think.
Do we want to put that on our agenda for next month?
I think it would be great.
Okay. All right. I think so too. Does anybody else have anything to add? Sheriff, what do you think of that idea? Us putting together, starting to talk about a framework. Just getting the conversation going.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about it. Again, I think it doesn't matter what we do. When we have an ongoing criminal case, I already went through this last year, and cases are investigated and gone through, we cannot release stuff. And this is something that the DA needs to be involved in these discussions, or one of his chief assistants. And then people start making accusations. But criminal cases are run, I take those very serious. And
yes.
Extremely serious.
I think we're all still on the same page, Sheriff.
Yeah, I think
because
so
it's the same thing with the body camera footage. When is it going to be released? And one of the concerns is if you have an ongoing case, that kind of a thing. So this falls under that as well.
Yeah, I agree, Rob.
We have to be careful. Okay, we have to be careful. Mr. Carty has a hand up.
Good afternoon, everyone. So
Good.
as Sheriff Bartlett said, the DA is in charge of prosecuting all criminal conduct, whether it be by a police officer or a citizen in the county. So that is something that we will have to consider. And that was kind of addressed by, I think, supervisor committees as well as by Sheriff Bartlett, but also with respect to the release and flow of information, there's also, in considering the time periods, a case isn't necessarily closed at arrest. So for sheriff, they make an arrest, their case is technically closed. It's closed by arrest. The case is then goes through the legal system and then is prosecuted, which could take months, and because of the pandemic, more likely years, because of how slow the overflow of cases that we have. But also then after a case, someone has pled guilty or has been convicted after a trial, then the case also may be under appeal. That process also can take months, and that process would also restrict the flow of further information that could result in, these are all other, the release of other information as well as complaints. But as the sheriff knows, and I'm sure many of you know, with the change of the discovery statute and as well as the release of all the 50A material, any and all complaints, founded, unfounded, doesn't matter, whatever complaints, all complaints, the district turn over with respect to every criminal case. So even if it is a uniform misconduct, where the dirty uniform, that complaint needs to be turned over to a defendant in every single case. So that's just also something to keep in mind, because in doing so, we are generating more paperwork as well as more information that then needs to be provided to defense counsel. And then the time period in which it needs to be provided is a very short span of time, 15 days on an incarcerated defendant, 45 days on an unincarcerated defendant after arraignment. So other food for thought.
A little more complicated than we thought, right, fellas? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cardy.
Well, Supervisor Bury, maybe we should put this on the agenda next month for continued discussion. It sounds like
Yeah.
maybe we need to
Again, I would defer to departments that have already established something along these lines, especially considering the new discovery rules. What they do to deal with that. My feeling is that we're not going to be able to get to a point where something happens, a complaint is made, and then 6 days later, that complaint is released to the public. I just don't see that happening in any case whatsoever. I'd be very surprised if it were. It's not that, I'm opposed to releasing information to the public. It's what Mr. Cardy and what Sheriff Bartlett have been talking about. We got to be very mindful of the fact that there's a whole process that goes on. And you can't damage any of the evidence that you have. It could jeopardize a case for a defendant as well as for the prosecution. Mr. Chimini, should I have your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify on the release of information. So one, I think if we're talking about the complaint review board, I just want to make it clear a distinction between them and the public. They are members of the public, but I think the expectation of that review board is that they're holding all their information in private in the same way an ethics board would. So it's there might still be requirements about when things gets released to them, but it certainly is a different distinction than releasing it to the public. And if we're talking about body camera release footage, I think we still have to be really careful about that. And I can certainly share the research that I did on what other municipalities are doing, but it is fairly common for that when there are incidents of force by a police officer, that there's some sort of process for footage release in that really specific lane of when body camera, it's not body cameras in general, but it's when body cameras have a use of force on a member of the public, footage would be released. And usually there's some sort of out clause, unless, we can't do it because of an investigation.
Yeah.
Some sort of gray area where the district attorney or the police could sort of flag that this is an exception. We can't do it. And even if it's for the sort of specific case. And there's a lot of examples of departments who do stuff like that.
And I do want to acknowledge that I was on vacation all last week, and I apologize, but there are 2 follow-ups from last time. One is Supervisor Chimidi's reporting on what he found with other municipalities as far as the release of footage with use of force incidents, and the other was the language switch on messing with data, so to speak, on the cameras, and we're open to it, but the wording of it was a little off. And I do apologize. I didn't have the time to do my piece. I know Supervisor Chimidi's did. Thank you. But those will both be on next month's agenda. And I also, between now and next month, I will look into, there's many other municipalities that have citizen review panels for complaints that come in. But we can also do a little research that we can bring to next month's meeting, and I'll send it out to everyone ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, as far as what they do and when does it go to the panel. When does it not go to the panel? As Mr. Carty said, what if there's an ongoing investigation? Why reinvent the wheel? I'll pull some of the other policies, and then we can see kind of what's out there and what works for us. So,
Sounds good. Anybody else to close out? It is 2:00. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sherry.
Sean, did you get everything? All right. Yeah, just email me the transcript if you would, just in case mine didn't save it. I think it did, but just